mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life. We won't live in the past. We're making it alive.
It's time for another conversation. Welcome to Making It Last podcast, where it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, with other people. And this time around, who better to talk about relationships than a retired marriage and family therapist, Raelene.S.Weaver. Welcome.
Welcome. Glad to be here.
What we're going to be unpacking is what is the risk of restricting emotions in boys and men? What is the risk, Raelene?
Well, I think, there are several areas. I think initially by doing that, we put boys in a emotional straitjacket, so they don't really feel comfortable being able to express their own emotions. They're held to this standard of masculinity, which means, you don't really show fear or sadness or grief. You just kind of have to have this mask on that makes it seem like, you're in control and you don't have any feelings. So that's one risk. The
Mm-hmm.
other is that if boys don't really feel comfortable with their feelings, they don't necessarily feel grounded in who they are. They're always kind of looking externally to see, oh, how should a man feel? How should I be handling this? I have to be tough. I have to always have the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I can't appear weak. Um, and then I think if it goes to the extreme, the risk is that they just kind of shut down emotions where they just really don't feel anything at all. And that's pretty sad when you think of it, because then they can't really experience joy or they can't experience feelings within themselves, and they don't really have empathy for other people's feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And if a boy or a man can't express their feelings, then often they turn to drugs or alcohol as a way to cope. It's just a way to self-soothe. They can't really express what's going on, so they try to calm themselves by using
Mm-hmm.
drugs or alcohol, or that's internally. If it goes externally, then they may become angry or they may be combative. Um, so yeah, it really is a disadvantage for them because they really don't get to feel who they are.
How then does that impact on their immediate relationship before we even touch how that, goes into the wider side? In terms of their immediate relationship, how does that impact on those relationships?
Well, I think, again, if they're always looking externally
Mm-hmm.
to kind of be judged on how they should act or feel, um, that's going to be more risky. Like we were talking about risk, they're going to want to try to fit in
Mm-hmm.
with who they think what are the guys doing? What's the popular way to be? And
Mm-hmm.
if that includes, fast driving or, doing things that could put them at risk, that's risky.
Mm-hmm.
If they aren't really good, like I said, at identifying their own feelings, well, then in a romantic relationship, they're going to have a hard time empathizing with their partners. So, yeah, it really handicaps them. What I always say is that the more that we can do to increase emotional intelligence
Mm-hmm.
in boys and men, the more we can decrease aggression and depression. So that's kind of a simple way of saying it.
Mm-hmm. How can we do that though? I mean, rather
It
trying
starts
not to
young.
sound cliche, it's easier said than done. So
Sure, of course.
how can we do that?
Well, that's what my book and my TED Talk, Let Boys Be Kids First, is all about, is that you start out, first of all, for adults, it's the adults that interact with boys. How do we treat boys differently
Mm-hmm.
than we do girls when it comes to emotions? Do we kind of give boys, kind of a negative look if they start to cry? Do we not hug them as much and express our love as much to them because we're afraid that that will make them weak or a mama's boy. A lot of it starts with
Mhm.
the adults in how they interact with young boys. And I think my big thing is that people think, like I said, if they're too affectionate or
Mhm.
too loving, that that's going to make their boys weak. And my argument is just the opposite.
Mhm.
The more that you love your boys, allow them to be who they are. Doesn't matter if they like trucks or if they like baking cakes or if they like the
Mhm.
color pink. Let them be who they are, support them, and they'll figure out their own brand of masculinity. For me, the main thing is let's focus on raising boys who have good character. It's not so much about, I mean, being tough and strong and capable. That's great. We all want our kids to be strong and capable and, to be able to take charge. That's fine. But
Mhm.
not at the expense of who they are, not at the expense
Yeah.
of their heart. You
Yeah.
know, I think that we need to focus on raising good human beings.
Mm.
And that's both boys and girls. So to answer your question, a lot of it starts with us, the adults,
Mhm.
and then challenging ourselves to face our fears. What are we afraid of? We're afraid our boys are going to get bullied. We're afraid that they're going to be
Mhm.
called gay. We're afraid that they're going to be picked on. Well, I challenge that. I really challenge that. Let them be who they are and support them so that they feel confident in who they are. And when they're confident in who they are, they're not going to be bothered so much by criticism and competition and bullying. Not saying it'd be easy, but they'll
Mhm.
be able to hang in there and say, okay, whatever. It's not, I don't want to go break into cars or whatever it is. I don't
Mhm.
want to follow what the other guys are doing just because they think that's masculine or whatever. So that's part of it. I think in curriculum, I think in schools,
Mhm.
the more, again, it's like you want to raise good human beings and you
Mhm.
want to lead with the heart. So in a classroom, it's like if one little student is sad, doesn't matter if it's boy or girl or whatever, it's like, how can I fill your bucket?
Ah.
How can I help you today? It's that kind of attitude. And if something gets spilled in the classroom, it's not just the girls that should be cleaning it up.
Mhm.
It's everybody pitches in. Everybody cleans up. And you have different toys. So it's not
Ah.
just all boys' toys on one
Mhm.
side
Mhm.
and all girls' side toys on the other. You let them, play with what they want to play
Whatever.
with, and be creative and help each other. So I think it starts out very young,
Mhm.
and I think we need to reinforce that all the way through school, um, so that boys have a safe space. I really think that as
Mhm.
boys get into their teen years, they need a place to go where they can talk about the peer pressure and they can talk about what's going on with them, wanting to date girls or trying to understand that or whatever. I think boys need to be able to talk about their emotions and talk about what's going on. Same thing in college. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
You said something earlier that I want you to backtrack a bit. You said, in terms of what that brand of masculinity, could be. Do you think that society has evolved and is evolving in terms of how masculinity is seen, or do you think to some extent it's also cultural? For those who are parents, are you allowing your little boys to feel and be in touch with their emotions? That's just a bit of what we're talking about this time around, but we must take a break and get a word from our partners. We'll be right back.
You can't live your best life without a healthy immune system. Boost your immune system the delicious way with Zappy's organic juices and punches. Made from local produce with zero added sugar, our juices cleanse and revitalize your body as they boost your natural immunity. Try our delicious flavors. Beat it. Berry Bomb. Get fresh. Ton up. and Island Splash. Find us on Instagram at Zappy's Organics or call or send a WhatsApp message at 1-877-779-8910 to order today. That's 1-876-779-8910. Zappy's Organic Juices and Punches. Live your best life today.
Hello, my name is Nicky Mason, and I want to share with you my journey with Noreen Daly in my communication coaching sessions. As I went through the sessions with Noreen, I was able to recognize my strengths in communication. Some things I didn't recognize that I would do, she was able to unearth and allow me to recognize that these are some strengths that I had. I did have some weaknesses which I was challenged to overcome through research, reviewing other public speakers, and being able to sit before a camera and to speak to an audience, an invisible audience. It was fun, and as a coach, she was patient and she gave good feedback, and she was able to give me the insight into communication as to how to best use my skills, my natural communication strengths to be engaging as a speaker. And I would recommend anybody who seeks to become a more competent communicator to enroll in her program, reach out to her, and I believe you're going to enjoy the journey as much as I did. Thanks.
Langdo Language Institute was created to meet your language and communication needs. All of our packages were created just for you. We are passionate about language and dedicated to your success. We offer the CSEC English program, the Study Buddy program, the Get Ahead with English program, and the Business Communication program. Contact us at 767-285-0938 or email us at landolanguage@gmail.com, because the real question is, how can we help you?
We must find a way to allow our boys to become men who are comfortable expressing their emotions. Let's continue the conversation.
I think that's a good point. I think there are cultural elements, and yeah, and in thinking about Jamaica or thinking about other countries, I think that does have a lot to do with it, and so I honor that. But yet at the same time, I think, again, my whole point about raising good human beings, I think that should relate, to everyone.
Okay.
No matter the culture. I guess that would be one thing. And as far as have things evolved, oh, Noreen, it's interesting. I mean, I've been passionate about this work for over 20 years, and there's been great writers and great people that have talked about this. And I quoted them, in my book and in my TED Talk. But it seems to me as I get older that in a lot of things, when we look at society, masculinity, femininity, mental health, suicide, different things, it's kind of always there. But I think that each, generation kind of deals with it the best they can.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like we need to just keep it front and center. And so, you've got people like me that are passionate about boys and men's mental health, and you've got other people that are passionate about, women's issues or whatever it might be. So, yes, I do see, I've got a Facebook group where I always post articles about emotional intelligence and positive parenting and gender equality and all of those things. And I do see a lot of changes. However, there always seems to be the opposing side.
Mm,
There's always, I don't know. So
mm.
I think we just kind of have to keep at it. And
How do you
yeah,
think, though, that a mother who's listening to this or watching this can then try to almost go against, what she has been taught in terms of how she's supposed to treat her son? How do you think she can try to move away from that to allow her little one coming up, son in particular, to be more in tune with his emotions?
I would have to ask again, is there a difference in how she treats her little boy than her little girl? That would just be something to think about. I mean, the maternal instinct, I think, is to love and to protect and to nurture, right? I mean,
Mhm.
and, just kind of thinking overall. So again, it's really looking inside her head and her heart and
Okay.
her expectations. And I always say you can have a boy who's tough, who represses his emotions, who's a good provider, who
Mhm.
does all those things. But in my ideal world, you can have a boy that does that as well as being tender and
Yeah.
nurturing and compassionate to others. So, um, I'm not sure if it's would just be within the mother's mind, or like you
Wow.
said, cultural,
Mhm.
within the family and the culture. Would she be criticized if people thought she was too,
Mhm.
affectionate or loving with her son? I
I
don't know.
I'm in a space, and I know over time Jamaica has been seen as very homophobic, and I think that has impacted a lot in terms of how even fathers relate to their sons. How then do
Right.
you think that, especially in a society like where I am currently, that fathers would be more open to showing their emotions in front or with their sons?
I think that a couple of things. I could think of a father, and I talk about this in my book too, is think back on how you were parented.
Mm.
So if it's a man with his son, think back on how he was parented. What are the good things that he would like
Mhm.
to take from that to pass on to his son? And what are the things that he kind of wants to leave behind? It didn't work out. He didn't feel that connected, or he didn't feel that loved or whatever. Certain things, okay, these were good. Other
Mhm.
things, I didn't feel comfortable with. I don't want to do that. So
Mhm.
I think that anyone, an individual, can do that. As far as the fear of, yeah, the homophobic or being gay,
Mhm.
you know, and here again, I'm in California, so I'm more of a liberal point of view, I guess, but you can't make someone gay.
Mhm.
They're either they're born, they discover that in themselves as they're growing up, but it's not something that you can make anybody gay. Now, me saying that, I don't know if people would understand that, but that's
Mhm.
that's my opinion, or that's my
Mhm.
feeling. So I think, and then what if your son was gay?
What then? Yeah.
But is that so you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Is that terrible? Is he a good person? Is he loving? Is he creative? Does he, show up? Does he
Mhm.
get things done? So the sexuality part of it, it's
Yeah.
to me that's very personal, and
Mhm.
I don't think people should be judged on that. But of course, here I am sitting,
Yeah.
my
Mhm.
part of the world too. So that's one thing, Noreen, that I was thinking too. I don't want to say anything that would be inappropriate or offensive, to anybody. So,
Well, I trust that who listens and who watches do listen with an open mind, and
okay.
yeah, that's my hope. All right, so as we're wrapping up,
Yeah.
ultimately, little boys become men, they have relationships. So for those who will have to relate to these little boys who, over time, didn't learn how to exercise some level of emotional intelligence? What's your advice for these persons who will have to deal with these men?
Well, yeah, so that sounds like couples counseling, Doreen.
Okay. All right. All
It sounds
right.
like
Fair enough.
couples here. So, I don't know. I would say to women, on the other hand, don't be with someone where you don't feel safe, or you don't feel comfortable, or you don't feel like you can be yourself. So that would just be with anybody. But if you're looking at a woman, with a man, she really needs to pay attention to how she feels around that person. And does she think that they can communicate well? And do they have similar goals? And do they enjoy each other's company? And those kinds of your heart, your goals. I think that's real important as far as the men that don't develop emotional intelligence. Here again, I'm a therapist, right? So couples counseling, I think a lot of men are very capable and want to learn more about how to express their emotions and to communicate better and to be better partners. A lot of, like I was saying, a lot of men have grown up in difficult environments, had very harsh fathers, or, you know, maybe one of their parents was an alcoholic or drug addict or whatever. So we all kind of have different things that go on. But I would think that, I don't know, I would hope that a man would want to have a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
And that way, kids growing up would see him participating as a good husband and as a good father. I would hope that most men would want that. I don't know. So
That's my hope as well. And I think it's an excellent note to end on. Thanks so much for sharing.
thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
This was Making It Last podcast, where it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, with other people. I'm Nuri Daly. Until next time.
Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life. We won't live in the past. We're making it